marching in all the right parades and knowing the key words that that make many of us actually do feel acknowledged as a result of that. But unfortunately, none of those activities help to increase equity in our city. So what I'd like to ask is if you could talk specifically about plans and policies that you would implement to ensure that the city's diverse communities, the nearly 40% foreign-born, their children, people like myself and my child, feel that we have equal access, not just access to have you attend events, but access to city services and to the kinds of policies that help us to feel that we really have the ability to achieve the American dream just like someone else does.
Let's see if we can do this in 1 minute each. We'll go right down the row. We can start with you, Mr. Liu.
Thank you very much. So that's something that's been near and dear to my heart. When I was a member of the City Council, the very first bill that I introduced was a bill that would ensure just that, equal access to city government without discriminating against people who don't speak English well. And the language barrier continues to be a big problem here in New York City. There are other global cities that conduct all their city or government business in multiple languages, and yet here in the city of New York, we can't even adopt some of the technology that makes it so easy to do so. So I would start by saying that under my administration, we would embrace the fact that people come here from all over the world, and there are about a dozen different languages that are very prevalent in many of the neighborhoods, and let's make city services accessible to all these people. It's also about making sure the opportunities are available. And so we're talking about opening access to the city's purchasing power, the city's contracts, MWBs getting their foot in the door. I talked a little bit about the bond business before, but this should be applicable to every city agency where we start to really break down the barriers that make it far more difficult for newcomers, for new business owners to get their foot in the door and get a piece of the purchasing pie that is New York City.
Thank you. Mr. Thompson.
Yeah, I think that when I was controller, one of the things that I talked about then was language access and access to things like healthcare and others where you saw children who had to go to the hospital or go to doctor's appointments with their parents because their parents didn't speak English. The child did. And the translations or what happened was frightening at times. People being misdiagnosed and not being treated correctly. So that was one of the things that I spoke about, one of the things I think we need to expand on a city level in all services, make sure that there's language access. But it's more than that. What does, if you look at city government right now, it is not diverse. The faces of the deputy mayors, of the commissioners, of those in a number of positions, it's not diverse. One of the things that I wanted in a Thompson administration, one of the things I did when I was controller, was to have a diverse group of people. Top-notch, aggressive, but diverse. I think that helps, and it sends a strong message. If from the top to the bottom, in all areas in city government, it's diverse so that the people of this city can look at those who represent them and understand that they can see themselves in that. I think that's important, and I think it sends a message out to many communities and to immigrant communities also across the city of New York that they're valued and that there are people there who are also working for them who understand that community directly. I think that goes a long way.
Thank you. Mr. Wiener.
Perhaps the greatest moral failing of our country is the inequity in which we deliver health care. There literally are people who have no health insurance in our town. There are people who literally have to get their service only at the final hours in an emergency room. Even after the implementation of Obamacare next year, 600,000 New Yorkers are going to be without any health insurance. Not to say that they won't have any care. They'll be able to go into hospital emergency rooms and we're all going to pay the bill. Only one candidate in this race has made a proposal, as I have, to create a single-payer system for New York that not only saves money, reduces costs for the taxpayers, but also creates a mechanism to cover those uninsured New Yorkers. You stand at the International Arrivals Building at JFK. You find some of the richest kings and potentates and richest people in the world coming here for health care. We've closed 13 hospitals in this city in the last 10 years. If we would have closed 13 bookstores, there would have been an outcry. Yet there hasn't been an outcry that there should be over those hospitals. My plan would be to reopen those hospitals, to use it as economic activity, but also to do the moral right thing. We might disagree and agree on certain issues, but there has to be a certain underlying morality of our society, and that is that every citizen, wherever they came from, have a right to be healthy and secure in their own body. That doesn't exist in the United States of America, and it's a sin that it doesn't.
You listen to career politicians talk about these issues, and you hear the same thing again and again. It's time really for some fresh ideas. You're asking about the inequality in access to services. You're asking about what do we do, concretely, specifically. Number one, our schools, our public schools, should be the great equalizer of opportunity in our city, and they're not. Specifically, there's a handful of schools in our public school system, and there's many private schools that teach entrepreneurship from the 6th grade on. They train kids from an early age to learn how to create businesses. The great opportunity of the American dream that I was able to, and fortunately able to participate in, and my parents and grandparents, and many others, but too many cannot. As mayor, I will institute NIFTY and other organizations that teach entrepreneurship from the 6th grade on for every child in our public school. Every single one, 1.1 million kids. These are the kinds of things that will help equalize access. Number two, I would advocate for not only the federal immigration reform that we need, but also the New York Dream Act. And the New York Dream Act specifically for New York State says that any kid, whether documented or undocumented, can have access to financial aid for college. That is something, as mayor, I will advocate for our children to get to college and get the access that they need to have the opportunity for the American dream. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, in regard of your question, I believe I would like to create a multicultural council, just like in Philadelphia, where every major ethnic group have a representative who have direct access to the mayor. Because right now, and I want to state that again, New York City is not a melting pot. It's a collection of different communities. And there are communities who exist that people not even know about it. For example, I am in Bensonhurst, and we have the bigger Guatemalan community. And one of the obstacles for the parents is that most of the people who belong to this community, they don't even speak Spanish, especially the mother of the children. So they are afraid to actually come and help the children with the school matters, because number one, they have no identification, because they are undocumented immigrants, so they have the shame to actually come forward. And number two, we have to understand the different community. That it is, when it comes regarding the policing, the community policing, they need to understand the sociology dynamic of New York City. It changed from town to town. And we have to concentrate also to empower the Community Educational Council to fight for what is best for the different school districts, because what is workable and functionable in one school district not necessarily have to work in another school district. So we have to be able to understand the diversity of our city.
So this is the microphone? So as mayor for access, I would hire Jack Hittery to work out the programs where every language that we can think of. And I think, Jack, that there are 220 different countries represented in Central Park on a Sunday afternoon. And that we all get along. Isn't that something that you can go to Central Park or Prospect Park and have no trouble at all? I did want to say, before it's over, that, is this on?
Yes.
Education is an important component of this, and I think that if we treat all of our children equally, San Francisco has a program called K2C that's partners with Citibank, and when a child registers for kindergarten, we open up a savings account, $50, $100 if they qualify for a student lunch. And we go on from there, and we can make philanthropic contributions to it, we can do all kinds of things, but the important part of it is that we're saving money for future education and valuing the child right away, and acquainting them with our financial system, because after all, money is what makes America turn. And we should educate them about money and paying for college right from the beginning.
Thank you. Now, we promised the candidates we'd get them out of here by 8 o'clock. We promised you all as well. Rabbi Berg has our final question, and if we are as speedy and succinct as we were on that last question, we should be just fine. Rabbi.
I have a question involving the past and the future. It's been over 20 years since we saw the Crown Heights riots and how racial and religious divisions can explode. And I guess my question to you is, almost as a case study, what do you think the city could have done in retrospect to have prevented that from happening? And in the future,